What's up, everybody? It's Hugo Clutch coming at you with another video, and this one is special. Not only are we going to talk about how the next 6 months can be huge for crypto, but I am also going to publicly throw $100,000 into a crypto portfolio that we will track over the next 6 months with the goal to make it $300,000. Before we dive into what's in the portfolio, first I want to talk about a couple important things as to why I am making these decisions and why I think altcoin season is upon us. So let's look at Bitcoin dominance. Bitcoin dominance has been rising consistently since about August of 2022. There's some valleys along the way, but for the most part it's been rising consistently. And we are at the point of the cycle where there should likely be a Bitcoin dominance drop. I'm not a financial advisor and this is not financial advice, but historically speaking, this is about the time in the cycle when Bitcoin dominance sees a drop, and that is why I'm going to be playing these next 6 months the way I'm playing them. As you can see, back in January or December of 2020, you can see the dominance went all the way from about 70% down to about 40% in May to June of 2021. So in about 6 months time, dominance went down from 73 to 40. That's a huge drop in Bitcoin dominance, and currently we are sitting at about 66% Bitcoin dominance right now. This is important because when dominance drops but the crypto market cap keeps going up, the altcoins soar in a situation like that. The next thing I want to talk about is that the S&P 500 recently had its highest daily close in history. Making a new all-time high is huge for the S&P 500, and likely when the S&P 500 makes a new all-time high, it continues a rally in the next 6 months following it. That is important information because with dominance set to drop and the S&P 500 set to continue into a rally, those are both two good recipes for altcoins, but there's more. Something else that's super important is that rate cuts are on the horizon. The prediction markets have a probability of about a 18% chance of a rate cut in July, and while that's not that strong, as you look through to the end of the year, it's likely that the market is baking in about 2 to 3 rate cuts, which those would be huge for the market. Rate cuts would also help spark the market to go from a risk-off environment to a risk-on environment. Understanding this is very important to why I believe the altcoin season is upon us. Since things have been tight capital-wise, it has been harder to borrow money and it is a higher interest rate, so people are less likely to take higher risks in the market, wherein they can just buy treasury bills or other money instruments that way. But as the cost of capital decreases and decreases, it makes more sense to take your money and take risks with it. And altcoins are one of those very speculative and high-risk plays. So I am somebody that believes on the thesis of as rates come down, money will trickle into the altcoins. And that is why I'm going to be playing the next 6 months the way that I am. The last thing I want to say before I show you the numbers for my portfolio is that I am not a financial advisor. This is not financial advice. This is purely me speculating on an opportunity that I believe currently exists in the market, and I really am at the point in my life where I'm willing to take high risks to make high rewards, and that is why I have constructed the portfolio that I have for this video and for these next 6 months. The suspense is over. Here is the portfolio broken down into a pie chart values. As you can see, the largest position is ETH, coming in at about 25 to 26%. The reason being for that is I believe ETH will lead the charge, and then as time goes on, money from ETH might trickle down into the lower caps from there. So I believe in opening up with a higher position in ETH and potentially trimming that down and putting it into other things as time progresses. But as this time period opens up, I want to have a higher position in ETH. I have a large portion in ONDO at about 16.4% because if you've seen my previous videos, I really do believe in ONDO, and go watch the video to figure out why. Solana, there's so much activity on the network That's why I have a big position in that. I think as Pump Fund picks up again and Solana continues to rip, I believe that it's a good coin to hold. Cardano, this one's a little bit more risky. It's kind of considered a dinosaur coin. The activity on the network isn't super strong. However, it has a cult following, and a lot of people are long-term believers in Cardano, and a lot of people have held it for a very, very long time with the intention to make a lot of money. So I believe the selling pressure will be a little bit lower in that coin, and it could have a big rip, and that's kind of what I'm banking on with a 10% position in it. Algorand, I've always loved Algorand. Its transaction speed is super fast, and it's never had any downtime in the network since its creation in 2018, I believe. So, that's 7 years with no downtime. That's really good. And as the institutional money circles into this space, the networks with no downtime are very attractive. Fartcoin, this is a very speculative play. It's a meme coin. However, everybody farts, and it's something that's been funny for many, many years. I like it better than other meme coins that have what I call a life cycle, or what people in the industry call a life cycle. For example, Harambe, it's a meme and it sticks around, but is it going to last forever? Whereas, Fartcoin is something that happens and everybody farts, so I believe it has some more staying power. XRP, I like that token. It's doing a lot with the banks. It's been, deemed the banker's token. It has partnerships with many banks and is currently being used. And, XRP will likely get an ETF this year. That's something else I forgot to mention with Solana. Solana will also very likely get an ETF this year, if not this month. So that's another reason why I have a large portion of that as well. VeChain being backed by, with the partnership with the UFC, not backed by the UFC, but it also has on the board of directors, it has Dana White. I believe those are two really good things for VeChain. It's also centered around logistics, and I think, it's a leader in that space. It also has the VBetter DAO, which inspires people to do things that are more environmentally friendly. And I really think that those things combined could create a really strong narrative for it. HBAR, Chainlink, and Jasmine are all smaller positions, and to save time on the video, I'm not going to dive specifically into each one. However, I think they're all things that can at least 3x this bull run if money starts to flow into the smaller cap coins. Jasmine is a coin that I personally have a very large stake outside of this portfolio as well. And Chainlink, HBAR, I have large stakes in them outside of this portfolio as well. It didn't make sense to weight them more than about 3 to 4% because of how high risk they are. However, I own a good portion outside of this portfolio as well. So these are the holdings broken down in a pie chart form, and let's break them down into a monetary form as well, just so you guys can see what I'm talking about. So this is the charts, the holdings, my apologies, in dollar form. As you can see, it's the same data that was in that pie chart form. However, it's more in a chart, so it's easier to see. This is what we'll be tracking. We'll be tracking the present value against the starting value and see if we can get this number to be 300,000 by the end of the year. That's the goal, and that's the whole point of this portfolio. I plan to make some moves in this portfolio over time, but for the most part, this is the bag of coins that I want to stick with, and these are the coins that I believe can, as a collective group, 3x from here to get this portfolio to 300,000. And it's not like I'm going to be in a position where I wait exactly until this hits and then I'm going to sell everything. I plan to sell things along the way to take profits. That's my advice to a lot of the newcomers. Don't just get on the roller coaster and ride it all the way up, then ride it down. Get on the roller coaster, and as it goes up, start to take money and start to better things in your life. If taking a $1,000 gain can drastically better your life, then take that gain. There's no harm in taking profits. So that wraps up this video. This is Hugo Clutch. Leave a like, comment what you think, and subscribe. Follow me along with the journey. The goal will be to update this in a video form at least every 2 weeks, and I might even try to do every week depending on how busy I am. But thank you, and follow along with me for an epic ride these next 6 months.